So a couple months back, I did a poll asking about kind of life challenges, the things that were stopping us from living our best life and holding us back. And interestingly enough, in joint first place with finances, like you kind of might expect, was actually the idea of having multiple interests, multiple pursuits, and working out a way that all of these things fit together without feeling overwhelmed or like you're neglecting parts of yourself and desires. And these interests and pursuits span things like finances and business, health and fitness, travel, relationships. And as somebody who has so many interests, so many things that I want to achieve and do and try, I really resonated with this. So in this video, I want to share some of the mindset shifts, but also the practical steps that I've taken over the years to find things that work for me without, reducing the quality of the work I'm doing or the quality of the experiences that I'm having. So let's just get into it. So the first thing on this list is actually a mindset shift, but it's so fundamental to all of the practical steps that I have to start with it. And it's this idea of seeing life in seasons and not balance. So the reality is, if you're trying to achieve anything in life, right, any of those categories of life, to move that thing forward, balance goes out the window. Balance becomes a myth because in order to move something from a static position, you have to apply force, right? You have to apply pressure. And in our case, it means investing time and energy in that thing. And given that we don't have an infinite supply of these things, something else has to give. And so this idea of balance across all things at all times becomes a bit difficult. For example, if you are entering a season of business growth or income generation, then those things require time and energy, right, in order to push that forward. Which means in this season, there may be other things that you're also interested in that maybe you can't do as frequently or as often or with the same intensity. And I found that looking at life like this takes so much pressure off of me because I've tried to do like the whole everything at once. It's just not feasible, right? Because the quality maybe of your work or experiences decreases, or you're just so stressed, or some things just don't get done at all, right? Like you don't do the thing all year that you said you was going to do and that you was really interested in because you was trying to do too much basically. So basically, to summarize this mindset shift, moving into a seasons approach to life will free up your mind from this fear of missing out, whilst allowing you to invest the time and the energy into the things that you need to and want to. Moving on from that, it's actually the practical implementation of this, right? So it's one thing to shift into a season's focus, but then how do you design a seasons or set of seasons in a way that makes sense? And one of the biggest things I found is building out your non-negotiables and working out everything else around those, right? The things that have to get done in that season in order for you to make the goals that you want to or to have the experiences you want to. Now, we're pretty multi-dimensional creatures, so it's not the fact that you can only do one thing any season, and there are some things that will transcend seasons, like health and fitness, for example, or relationships. But nonetheless, where I start is by listing out all the things that I want to achieve in a year, right? What are the things that I'm hoping to experience or get out of life? But now you're faced with this really big list, and the next thing you have to do is prioritize for right now. So just focus on, what do I really want to get done now in the next, say, 3 months, in the next 6 months? What is going to be my focus for the next season? And then what are the non-negotiables for those? Is this a season where your primary focus is on your health because you haven't perhaps been in the condition and the health that you've wanted to for a long time, and so that is going to be one of your focuses for that season? Or is it business, or is it relationship? And then how do those non-negotiables fit into the months, the weeks, and the days? What tasks do you need to be doing, or what activities do you need to engage in? The other really powerful thing is that this is going to force you to really question why it is you're doing what you're doing, because as certain things get put on the list for a season, other things will have to be removed or the intensity of them diminished. And so you're going to have to say, is it worth me right now? Or is it something I want to do to invest in my business? If it means I'm not going to be able to spend as much time with certain people, or if it means I'm not going to be able to invest in my health as much because I'm going to be focusing here, or I'm not going to be able to travel as much because, I've scheduled out meetings for the next foreseeable future. And that means I can't just jet off across the world and be in a different time zone. What does that mean for you? Okay, so let's move on. Those first 2 points were more about thinking about time, conceptualizing it, and organizing it. Let's talk about creating more of it. And there are 3 main ways I've found to do this. The first is to optimize, the second is to automate, and the third is to outsource. So first, let's talk about optimizing. And this is really all about creating systems that improve your efficiency when you're doing certain tasks and certain activities. For example, you could go to the gym with no plan, right, and just wing it and kind of swan around there for an hour and a half. Maybe you do a couple of exercises, maybe you get on a few machines, but really you haven't maximized what you could out of that hour or that hour and a half at the gym. Or You could go to the gym with a program, with a plan, with a guide, right? Creating systems for what time you're going to get there. You know, the type of activities that you're going to do and what you're going to do if a machine isn't there and it isn't available, especially if you're a newbie to it. So now let's move on to automation and AI. Now, this is all really about streamlining the processes that involve manual steps in your life, right? There are a number of tools that are out there right now, and new ones are coming out every day that help take away the kind of manual tasks that we may not want to do as humans, and the computers are like, we can do that. You've probably heard of ChatGPT, perhaps Tome, even Notion AI, especially if you've been on my channel for like the last few months. But a prime example of using this, if you have multiple pursuits and interests, is perhaps you're a content creator, right? And you love certain parts of the process, like you really like spending the time in the editing of the videos or of the document or whatever it is. But you kind of struggle with structuring your ideas and your concepts. Like you can come up with these things, but structuring them in a way that makes sense and is easy to follow is something you struggle with. And you actually spend a lot of time doing it. So instead, you give that concept or that idea to something like ChatGPT and allow it to craft it or structure it in a way that is logical and easy to follow for somebody else who's watching it on YouTube or on TikTok or on Instagram or anywhere else, your blog post, your website. You may even then go a step further and use another tool to schedule and automate when that actual piece of content is released. And again, this takes away your need to be there at every step, or your need to invest as much time there, and again, free up for other things that you enjoy more and that you'd want to invest more time in. Another example of this could be if you need to create presentations for university or for work, and perhaps you're looking for a tool that would help, with that process a little more, speed it up. And you could use something like Tome in order to create some sort of structure for which you can enrich it, right? You can add your own text, you'll add your own research, but some of the outline is crafted here, and the images, the AI generated images for each of these slides is also created for you. And again, it takes away time. You may spend hours or at least a couple of minutes trying to find the right image and trying to find the right stock image for this particular, slide. Or you could get a coherent set of images created for you that really improves the quality of your work and reduces the amount of time you spend on it. At the end of the day, all of these things are very time intensive. And if you can free up your time by handing it over to a tool or a program to do it for you, especially if you're not keen on that particular set of the process, or you're not needed, like your individual knowledge, experiences, or so forth are not needed directly to produce that outcome, then why not automate that process? So the final thing in creating time is about outsourcing. And this is especially the case if time is a bigger constraint than finances, in which case you can hand over certain tasks to somebody who may be better set up to do them, can do them more efficiently, and ultimately you can do other tasks. You can do other things that you want and engage in other interests. For example, it may involve you handing over some of the tasks in your content creation process or your business to a freelancer that you can use as and when you need to, or having a more permanent person there in terms of an assistant. But either way, you can find what works for you. And then you can use that time perhaps to go to that hobby that you want to do. Like you wanted to be swimming several times a week. And now, because you've got an extra time in your schedule, you can do that and do that comfortably without compromising other things. But it could also involve tasks that you do at home that are also time consuming. Like perhaps you do a deep clean every week or every 2 weeks on a Sunday when you're not at work. But you really want to spend that time doing something else. Like you want to spend the time with your partner, having the day with each other, going out, going for meals, doing an activity. And instead you hire somebody then who's going to deep clean for you every fortnight and free up that time for you to do other things. Again, it will depend on what you enjoy doing, what you're willing to spend on. But in order to take this from theory to practice, I would suggest writing all the things down that you do in a week or that you want to do and how much time each of these things take. Then estimate how much time you would free up if you either optimize, automated, or outsource these tasks. And then you can fill your schedule back up with that time to do the other things. And the final thing I want to talk about that I've found has been so helpful when you have all of these interests and pursuits is checking in with the source of truth. There's a concept in tech known as a single source of truth, where you make sure that your desired state matches your current state by checking in with that source of truth. And in terms of us, we have so many things influencing us. Social media, TV, family, friends, right? That it can be hard to understand if the things that we are trying to pursue and that we have interest in actually are genuine to us and reflect what we want to be doing and getting out of life, or if there's some distorted version of everything going around us. Which is why it's so important to reflect and take time to kind of look inwards at what you're doing and why all of these things are going on, why you even care about traveling and this business and this relationship and this thing over there and the gym. Why do you care? So reflecting on these things can really help ground you And stop you becoming overwhelmed with suddenly all these pursuits that keep adding up every time you go on TikTok and see something new happening. And it may be the case that upon reflection you decide it's time to draw a season to an end and enter a new one, or actually I need to scratch that off the list completely. That's it. If you enjoyed this video and you want to know more about AI and how you can use it for productivity, then check out this video there. And if you want to learn more about discipline and motivation and how to optimize these things, then check out that video there. I'll see you in the next one.